Well, hey everybody, Matt Heller here, founder of Performance Optimist Consulting and the author of The Myth of Employee Burnout, here with another episode of 3 Questions. Today I am so excited about the guest that I get to talk to. This is Amy Hollaman. Did I say that right? Amy Hollaman? Hollaman, thank you very much. Amy and I met last year at IAPA, and Amy is the manager of events and operations at the Eastern State Penitentiary, which that in and of itself is really, really interesting and cool. But she's also creative director for the Terror Behind the Wall, which is a Halloween event there at the jail. I'm just going to call it jail. And Amy, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about you and what you do, and a little bit about your attraction, because I think it's different than pretty much anybody else that I know for sure.
Sure, great. So like you said, my name is Amy Hollaman, and I work here at Eastern State Penitentiary Historic Site in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, this is a National Historic Landmark. Originally, it was built in 1829. It was the first penitentiary in the world, meaning instead of just lock them up and throw away the key, the Quakers thought, maybe we can rehabilitate people. It was really groundbreaking ideas. At one point, it was the most expensive building in the world. It had heat before the White House, centralized heat. And then it closed down in 1971 as Philadelphia sort of engulfed what used to be a maximum security prison sitting above the city. Then it sat in decay for about 20 years, and then a group of volunteers came together and said, hey, we think this could be a great place, an interpretive museum, where people can learn about the history and see this world-renowned architecture. And the city said, all right, we approve. But the place was in shambles. There's crumbling buildings everywhere. So in order to raise some money, we came up with the idea of having a Halloween fundraiser. Now you can imagine, because this building was designed to intimidate people, it lends itself very well to a Halloween event. So 25 years ago, this started, and it's evolved over the years and now become the most attended and popular haunted house in the country after haunted houses that are held at major theme parks. So we have well over 100,000 visitors a year, and we run our show for 30 show nights, and we raise 65% of the museum's operating costs for the whole year. So it's pretty unique. It's definitely scary. It's a lot of fun, and we entertain everyone from families to college students, senior citizens, if they want to come get a friend.
Awesome. Well, that does sound very cool and unique. So what is your role there at the penitentiary?
So my biggest project of the year is Terror Behind the Walls. I'm the creative director, and I wear many hats. Now, we are a nonprofit, so that's pretty typical for nonprofit leaders. So I oversee the creative team, which means I oversee theatrics, technical design, costume and makeup design. In addition, I'm in charge of hiring and human resources for over 300 seasonal staff members. And then I'm a general manager while the event is operating, meaning I can have over 1,000 visitors in the building, about 200 staff members every night, several vendors and different contractors running this major event. So that's my role for the haunted house, but that's not all I do. So as the manager of events and operations, I run events for the museum year-round. It can be lectures, like public programming events, as well as private events. I do corporate events. I have done a wedding here before. And I do a big event in the spring called the Masquerade, the dance party at the Pen. And it's a mysterious dance party. Serves as a fundraiser, 21 and older, and I work with all different artists from the Philadelphia area to make one of the most mysterious, eerie, and yet fun dance parties that you could ever go to.
That sounds really, really cool. I mean, everything you described so far is really cool and unique, and I especially like that little guy behind you. I don't know if that's your mascot or he's the...
Yeah, this is a mask. It's a zombie. He's a zombie guard. And you can flip up, he can show you his brains.
Oh, nice.
I just brought some fun props. Last year we built a brand new attraction called Quarantine. Knocking everything over. Literally the cell blocks are crumbling. But this is Medusa's headdress. So you can see it's more of a 3D blacklight attraction, but I thought it was pretty cool. This was made by our special effects team in-house. So I just thought I'd take it out to show you.
That's awesome. No, that's very, very cool. And I will have lots of questions about that kind of stuff in a little bit, but also want to get to the 3 questions that we have for each other, just to kind of dive into that piece too.
Awesome.
So I'll go first if that's all right. So speaking of the penitentiary, most people want to leave prison. So you've talked a lot about, the events you do and things like that. So what are some of the operational or even marketing challenges you have getting people to come to the prison for an event that might be different from another attraction, where they have roller coasters and video games and things like that?
Well, it certainly is a challenge. There is a fascination with what people call dark tourism. So it's sort of the darker side of history, and those people, they're not as much of a challenge to market to. They want to go to abandoned buildings. Sometimes they do this in a format of urban exploring, but there is a big part of our population that doesn't really want to know much about incarceration. They don't want to come back here. So what we do is we try to think of all different ways to invite people. For example, sometimes people really want to connect with other people. So we have an event called the Alumni Reunion, where we invite former inmates and staff members to come, and they do a question and answer session with the public. Now, sometimes something like that is intriguing enough that people will come. They might live right down the street, have never come here ever before, but they hear about this event and they think, well, that's a real person, a real voice, not just maybe what the museum says, but they can hear that from a real person. So we think of all different ways to present the history. Also, I'd say right now is a unique time in that prison is something that people are fascinated with right now. Like Orange is the New Black is obviously huge, and sort of bringing up a lot of issues of what are happening in prisons today. So we present our building in a way that you can learn about the past. For example, Al Capone, famous gangster, was imprisoned here for 8 months. So he's certainly at the forefront of some of our marketing, but we also bring up what's going on in prisons today. So we really try to span our marketing plan. For it might be your general tourist who's in Philadelphia, they want to come by and see Al Capone's cell, or it could be someone who's maybe already lives in greater Philadelphia area and considers themselves to be more interested in academic style information. So we really try to reach a broad audience with all the different offerings that we have. We even have a weekend that we call Pets in Prison Weekend, where we do team up with an organization called New Leash on Life. They bring dogs in that have been trained by people who are currently incarcerated, but we also put history about what were animals like in this 11-acre building. Like, inmates did have birds as pets sometimes. They would just fly, and that would be their little feathered friend. Now, that event a lot of times is appealing to kids and families more because there's that pet, that animal connection. So we try to really think about what are different, offerings we can get to bring people into the building. And once they get here, they learn much more than they thought they ever would.
Awesome. So I have 2 actually quick follow-up questions on that. First of all, what's your average length of stay when someone comes to the museum? Not during the not during the Halloween event. Length of stay, and then what are some common misconceptions that people have? Like, I never would have thought that inmates had birds, and be able to make that connection with pets.
Okay. Average length of stay at our museum is currently an hour and a half. So most people take the audio tour that's narrated by Steve Buscemi from Boardwalk Empire, and that's the fundamental part of that tour. Is about an hour long. Now, you can stay here all day long because there's also artist installations and you can sort of touch and go with different programming. Most people, about an hour and a half seems to be their length of stay. Your second question, misconceptions. Okay. Now, I'm not a tour guide, but what I hear most often as a misconception is about people think that the inmates were tortured. And you see this building that's very scary, and that's what a lot of times people want to know about that. They want to know about weapons, they want to know about shanks, they want to know about how were inmates punished. But the truth is that this building was opened with the idea of not using that type of punishment. Like, it was a step away from the stocks. And it was the idea that if you were alone in solitary isolation, you could work on building furniture and you would have your Bible, that you would find your inner light. So they actually weren't using that many torturous, punishing, systems. That doesn't mean punishment never took place here. It certainly did. But a lot of times people come in and they want to see the shackles and the chains, and you don't see that because, like I said, it was a step away from that. And really, the cell blocks looked like a church. And that was all about the idea of really making the prisoner feel penitent and closer to God. So I'd say that's, very different. People want to see that kind of stuff, the stuff they see on TV, But it's different than that, and it's much more unique. And I think people love stepping into history, literally. You're not just reading about it in a book, but you're walking through the space. And visitors we have really good results on our surveys, our exit surveys. A lot of times people say they learned stuff they didn't expect to. So we're pretty happy with our programming, but we're always trying to get better.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm learning things already that I had no idea were going on there. So I got to get myself up to Philadelphia pretty soon here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you have a question for me? Let's get.
I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know you've traveled the world and done consulting work with all different types of attractions, and you've probably in that time visited a lot of historic sites. So what's your favorite, or what sort of stands out in your mind, something historic that you find very interesting?
Wow. It's funny. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, that I was not really interested in history until I started traveling more. And, all throughout school, it never really interested me. And, I hate to say it, even when I went on family vacations, my parents would take me to some place that was supposed to be really interesting and supposed to be really important to the country's history and those type of things. And it just didn't click with me for some reason. But I have to say that a couple of years ago, I got to go to Washington, D.C. And just walking around the mall, and I didn't really go in many museums or monuments and things like that, but just being in that city and walking around and kind of feeling the history, that was really, really powerful to me. And, I just thought, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, it doesn't matter, what your political views are. You have to respect what has kind of happened in that city, especially, as the country was founded and things progressed. So that's a place that I would love to go back to and be able to spend some more time is Washington, D.C. But really, as I go around and do travel, I now, as an adult, try to work in extra time so that I can go see the city that I'm in, or go find out a little bit about the history. And it seems like wherever we go, there's some sort of historical walking tour or audio tour. And when we can go and do that, or take a tour with a tour guide that has some background information, that stuff I just absorb now, and I love it. And understanding kind of where things are and really why things are the way they are. And I think that's probably kind of goes back to trying to understand, even how Washington, D.C. was designed and what people had in mind for the kind of presence that they wanted to show people from other countries and all those type of things. I think that's one of the areas that I would really love to go back and explore some more.
I know what you mean. I went to a trip down the Danube River in Europe 2 summers ago, and I didn't even know that much about that part of the world. But once I came back, I started hearing different facts, and I was like, oh, I've been there, and I know that. And even if you weren't interested in it, when you actually step into it, it sort of triggers all your synapses, and you're like, whoa.
Well, that's what I found really interesting is that, like I said, as a kid, I wasn't all that interested, but now everywhere you go, there's a story. I mean, every little, ball of twine someplace has a story that there's a reason why it's there. There's a reason why somebody, took the time to put it there, or, there's a story behind it. So that's what I now find fascinating, kind of along that same line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you ready for your next question?
I'm ready.
All right. So this one will be a little bit of a departure. If you were a superhero more than you are now, what would your 2 superhero powers be?
My 2 superhero powers. All right. One, time travel. Gotta have time travel. I feel like one, yeah, it's super cool and fun to think you could be anywhere, anytime. But I'm someone who, no matter what I do, I like to make an impact on the world. And I do think, like, sure, you could rewind time just a little bit and rephrase something you say in a conversation. But with all the knowledge we have now, if I could go back in time and just change a few little things in history, who knows how it could affect the whole course of the world. So I'd like to think, one, time travel. And not to mention you can see the future as well. So time travel, I think, would be one. And I think superhuman strength. You know, I feel like time travel is like really like logical choice, and then superhuman strength is more of the fun choice. And not because I want to hurt people, but because I want to help them, or also just really like surprise people by picking up a few cars and clearing up a traffic jam. So I think those two would be a nice combination. You know, you could really make a big difference in the world if you had both of those superhuman skills.
I would agree, definitely.
And I mean, you didn't ask, but of course I'd have to have a really cool outfit and cape. So.
Well, I thought that was a given.
Yeah, definitely.
So you would go with the cape? Would you go with any kind of headgear? Would you have, what color would it be?
Well, I feel like the cape would be red, and yes, I probably would have a mask, because once people started to hear about, you know, Amy Hollaman can time travel and lift cars, there'd be all these people calling me all the time. So I think I'd have to hide my identity. I like the Mexican luchador style masks.
Okay.
So something like that laces up the back and shiny, all shiny fabric, very shiny. So when I pop into a space, you sort of like, whoa, and demanding attention before I even have to start talking or demonstrating my strengths. Yeah.
Right. So is that a character we'll see at the penitentiary?
Never know. You never know. The super general manager.
That's right. Well, it sounds like you already have a lot of duties that you're doing kind of as a superhero already. So that time travel would probably be very helpful in all the things you're doing and all the coordination you have to do, just across the board.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, I'm a similar character, but more of in my vein of the Halloween set. So, and I know you've done consulting for Halloween events before, too. So you're probably familiar with, there's a huge spectrum of Halloween characters. So if you could select a Halloween character to act as for a night, in real life, in a show, what would you want to be and why?
That is a good one and a tough one. I think about the different, my mind first goes to where the character is. So are they in a street kind of roaming around, or are they in, more of an enclosed environment? And I think because I love the element of surprise, I would want to be someplace where where there's misdirection. So I'm sort of the misdirection of kind of creating the scare, creating the experience. But I think my outfit or my character would be very simple. Not the shiny and the mask and this cape and everything. But for scaring, I would probably want to blend into my surroundings until just the right time, and then make my presence known either with some sound or with a quick movement that catches the eye, things like that. I think that would probably be a character that would appeal to me to want to perform, night after night, or even just for one night. But I think that kind of scare, I don't know why it appeals to me. So. I wasn't a big fan of haunted houses when I was younger, but working with Halloween Horror Nights at Universal, that was a whole new experience, and I really got into the whole kind of the science and even the psychology of that kind of event, and how you can scare people in very, very subtle ways and create different kind of experiences that you can't do during the day.
That's right. Yes, what you're describing, we call a camouflage scare.
Okay.
So you sort of, like you said, blend in with your surroundings, and then you're also using a startle element, thrown in there that's sort of, people feel unsettled, and then they have that startle. So it's always good at a haunted house to have a combination of different kinds of scares. You can't just startle, and you don't want it to be too low intensity, because then people don't think they got their money's worth. So I think, like you said, you want to come to Philadelphia. We do have guest appearances at times, so maybe we'll see this fall what you're up to.
Right on, right on.
Yeah.
Do you have something where I could just kind of blend in, like you said? And
Oh yeah, I can't say what costume would be, because then if any of my customers are watching, they'll know where you are.
That's right. Then it wouldn't be a scare. Then it wouldn't be a startle, would it?
No.
No. All right. So let's see. I think I have one more official question for you. So to date, what has been, is kind of a two-part. To date, what has been your biggest professional accomplishment, and what are you still looking to accomplish in your professional life?
Okay. Well, I've been talking about Terror Behind the Walls a lot. I certainly think that, as far as numbers go, and finances, and press, national press and national recognitions, Terror Behind the Walls in the last 2 years under my leadership has done better by every measurement tool you could look at. And that's something I'm very proud of. But to sort of talk about maybe another accomplishment I had, I used to work for the Girl Scouts of Eastern Pennsylvania. And I was hired there as an agent of change, someone they really wanted me to come in and take over a summer residential camp program. And they said year after year, they told me all the symptoms of problems they had, and what I could recognize was a sort of culture of laziness had been accepted, probably trickled down from leadership. And even though they started bringing new camp directors, the camp director would have a hard time, get stressed out, burn out, and leave. So when they tasked me with taking over this camp and really bringing it up, I said, I think we have to start from scratch. And I think we have to wipe out the staff. And if anyone wants to come back and work here, because camps are so heart-driven that they have to interview. But they need to go through this process with me, because I'm starting a whole new culture here. And I had to hire 50 staff members, some of which are international, which I'd never hired people from all over the world before. So that was a challenge in itself. Had to oversee 14 horses, which I had never done, and then have about 200 campers from kindergarten to age 18 on a 500-acre property. And it was a huge success. We turned around the camp. We sold more camp programs than we ever had, and the girls had a great time. And we changed the entire culture. At Girl Scout camps, you have camp names, and I called myself Captain Holla, because my last name's Hollaman. And it was a call and response. So I'd walk up to the girls and be like, "Hi girls, my name is Captain," and they'd all say, "Holla." But it was this idea of enthusiasm and excitement, something that could only happen there. It was really a place-making experience, and we made our own songs. Like Girl Scouts have traditional songs. We made our own raps. We made it all about who was there at that time while combining Girl Scout traditions. And it was just a heartwarming experience. And some of the old staff who I did bring back, who were a little bit naysayers at first, they bought into this new vision, and they realized that in order for us to really build girls and empower them, we need to take the lead in that and lead by example. And it was not easy, and my staff was all pretty much high school and college students, and that is not necessarily an easy age to convince that change is a good thing when they're so used to the way it was. But that was a huge accomplishment. I was really proud of myself and very exhausted after that summer.
I'll bet. So what did that experience teach you, or what have you brought from that to your role now at the penitentiary?
Well, importance of organization and planning as far out as you can. That's sort of something big I learned is that I had to start planning for the stuff in the summer, in the fall, right after summer ended. I had to start planning far out. And then I think the other thing is not being afraid to try new things. You know, like this Terror Behind the Walls is in its 25th season. So there's a lot of tradition here and a lot of things that have worked. But of course, like any other event like this, you see some things that maybe they could be better. And I realized with Girl Scouts is sometimes you do have to start from scratch and try to rebuild. So I've never been able to do that with this entire event because it's so big. But we'll take little pieces at a time, wipe away, rebuild, and start something brand new. So I think not being afraid to try new things and also recognizing great staff members and making examples of them as opposed to making examples of bad staff members. You know, really having a culture of positivity builds that can-do attitude. And I was always, when I was at Girl Scout camp, I was waking up and doing those 7 a.m. flag ceremonies, and I was the camp director, and I was right there with my staff, exhausted, waking up in the morning, doing those traditions. And I do the same thing here. I get into costume and makeup, not every night, because I'm the general manager on some nights, and a customer would not like me receiving their complaint when I'm Knuckles, my character. But I get into costume and makeup with them, and I scare hour after hour, and they feed off of that. My staff loves that, and they feel like I get them, and they feel comfortable coming to me when they have problems, you know, or celebrating their successes. So I really feel like, I guess I'm sort of thinking through it, but my biggest takeaway maybe is to, as a leader, to keep yourself integrated into the front line so that you have a pulse on what's happening, and also so your staff see that you are willing to get down in trenches and do what they do.
Right. And I think there's a couple really interesting points in there. First of all, the piece about staying, you know, in tune with the front line, but also knowing that you don't do it every day, right? Because then you're the front line.
Right.
So, you know, understand that there's a need for a balance there. But I loved what you said too about they know that you get them. And I think if nothing else, employees need to know that they've got somebody in their corner. It sounds like you've been able to be that person for them.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
All right. So this question is about you, and I want to know about sometime in your professional life when you were afraid of something and how you overcame that fear.
Well, we are experiencing that right now because, you know, as a speaker, as someone who gets up in front of people and talks for a living, it's not always been very comfortable or not something I've always wanted to do, it being in front of the camera doing it. And, you know, when I got into the business of being a professional speaker and I started being a consultant and knowing that I had to get myself out there and let people know what I was like when I spoke if they had never seen me in person. I knew that video, you know, on the internet was a way that had to happen. So I tried so many different ways to you know, put up a camera and talk directly to the video, and I never felt comfortable doing it. And I think the fear was that I was going to look stupid. I wasn't going to feel natural, that people weren't going to get the right impression of me. And so I decided to do this sort of interview format where I feel much more comfortable talking to someone when there's an actual topic and, you know, there's questions being asked and we can kind of throw back and forth. And I figured that was a way to get myself out on video, but also in a way that was much more comfortable. The other thing that I did to sort of overcome that fear is that I don't edit these videos. I'm my worst critic, and if I was going to go back and nitpick something I said and edit out this one little thing, or maybe if I could time travel and go back and change what I said, that'd be cool. But I said, you know what? I've got this interview format, and I'm just going to let the conversation flow. We had a little technical issue earlier. I will edit that out. But as far as the content and what we're talking about, I just let it roll. And to me, that has helped me get over the fear because I have to do it. I have to get it out there. So that's part of it. And then the other piece of it, which I've always believed, that you have to have people that can help you. And so when I know that there's somebody else on the other end of this interview, that helps me know that I have to get that out there because they're also counting on me. You've helped me, with this format, but also I know that there's an accountability that I've said that I was going to get this out there. So now I don't have a choice. Now I'm not just letting myself down. Now I'm not just, deleting the thing that I just recorded on the video camera. Now there's more of an accountability to someone else that I need to follow through with. So it's a great question. And this video format is an example of me getting over the fear of putting myself out there on video on the internet.
Oh, good. I usually instill fear, but I'm glad today I'm helping you with it.
You absolutely are helping me. Although if I come up and visit you, it might be a little more scary.
Of course.
So, yeah. So those are my questions. Do you have any other questions? Just as we've kind of brought up during the conversation before we sign off.
No, those are the three I prepared.
Awesome. Well, Amy, I want to thank you very much for your time today and your candidness and all the information you provided about the penitentiary. I encourage everybody to go see it. I'm excited to get up there at some point and see it. So, Amy, thanks again for your time, and have a great 2016.
Thanks. Yeah, if you want to check out more about the penitentiary, it's at easternstate.org. And I really appreciate this, Matt. Thanks a lot. It's been fun.